Patriots. This is Living with Liberty, your source for common sense and truth. Bringing you insight from outside the mainstream, I am your host, Ryan. We have a special guest on today's show, and we are talking about the state and direction of the Republican Party. Next on Living with Liberty. On last week's show, I have a special guest joining me this week. No, I am biased, of course, but I know you will find our wide-ranging conversation on the state of the Republican Party and conservatives in general informative and enlightening. Now, our conversation was focused a lot on local candidates, having just gone through the Republican primary, just the partisan primary here in Wisconsin, so that's the top of mind right now. But I know you will be able to take our examples and apply them to your local candidates and parties. I also want to let you know the interview ended up being audio only. My camera froze and quit working partway through, and the content that we had up to that point was just too good to try and recreate. So the conversation with my special guest is audio only, but the show must go on, right? Anyway, without further ado, here is our take on the state of the Republican Party. Here with me today is a good friend of mine, Adrienne Melby. Adrienne is a fierce patriot who has fought for medical freedom when our school board decided that our kids needed to keep wearing masks. She helped me immensely in my school board run. And most recently, she has been pushing our county GOP to be more transparent, which we should all want of our political leaders and parties. Welcome to the show, Adrienne. How are you?
This is gonna be fun.
Absolutely. My pleasure. It's a lot of this, what we'll talk about today is things I've been talking about on the show about, particularly the Republican Party and how they just don't seem to get it. You've had, yeah, I'll say this, you have been a major pain in their ass over at least the last 6 months. And I love it. I've just sat back with my popcorn and watched. You've had quite the battle against our county party.
Has it been Rojo's popcorn?
Yeah, could be. Yeah, could be. That I don't know. That would be appropriate, I think. You've been battling everything from the transparency, from just the secrecy around the party, into how they're electing board members, who's being elected to the board. And why they're being elected to the board, to really just our primary. There was just really an unethical naming of the campaign office in our town here, really, where they set it up. I mean, I think that was really,
for sure,
to call it a GOP campaign party or campaign headquarters that was paid for by a candidate and was excluding GOP candidates from that office. Their right to do. They paid for the office, but at the same time, a bit unethical to call it a GOP office, if you ask me.
Right.
And how could I forget this? Our state treasurer, candidate who won the primary, who is now voting elsewhere and claiming residency here in our county, which was just a mess that not only you brought up, but I think the chairman of the party on hiatus also kind of brought that to the attention of
Yes.
The powers that be. Unfortunately, the Good Old Boy Network, the Good Old Boy Establishment Network, has a stranglehold on our party here in our county. Anyway, I think as I look around the state, and you have a lot more contact with, I think, party heads around the state. I don't think that's the case around the state. I see shifts, especially up north, but I think it's killing the party. It's killing our county party. They repeatedly say that the tent is big and that all ideas are welcome, but my observations have been that at the end of the day, groupthink is demanded of those within the party, and that those with different ideas aren't heard, including yourself. As I've sat back with my popcorn and watched you work them over, you face much the same. So tell us about your experience battling against the party, battling against this demand of party groupthink.
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't my intent to battle them, right?
It's turned into that.
Yeah. I appreciate integrity and honesty in the groups, the communities that I'm involved in. So it was kind of shocking to me to realize that the GOP wasn't what I had envisioned it to be. So Aaron's my husband. Aaron and I got involved in the GOP back when a lot of the school board issues started in Burlington, late 2019, 2020, I think. And, I really felt like this was, like Trump Republicans, right? Or Patriot Republicans.
Right.
But it's really like a party of the obedient, the party of who will be the followers. So, the first, gosh, I don't even know if I can think back to all of the issues that we've had. But the most recent thing is that, my membership dues for the Racine County GOP were returned to me along with a letter saying that my dues were being returned because of issues that I was causing in the county party by voicing my opinion.
Well, you were calling,
but nothing in the letter stated.
You were calling them out. You were not only should we be calling out corruption of the other side, but you were calling out corruption within our own party. Goes back to your integrity comment before, where you want to see integrity, and we should. That's the principle that we want to stand on, that they claim to stand on. We should uphold that. And you were just calling that out.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, that's certainly how I feel.
I feel the same. That's from my vantage point. That's certainly what it looks like.
I'd like to see the integrity in our party that I would hope for and expect before we, expect that from another party or from the other side. I'm just claiming that I have a free membership for right now, because nothing in the letter said that my membership was revoked. So
just returned to money.
Yep. So I have a free membership for right now. But yeah, and then we can talk about the treasurer.
Yes.
We have a treasurer running for a statewide race.
Mm-hmm.
He has been a resident off and on of Racine County for most of his life. He was evicted from a residence in 2006 in Milwaukee. Not really sure what that whole situation was, but he obviously wasn't living in Racine at that time.
Right.
And then in 2018, I believe he ran for office in Racine.
Mm-hmm.
But then in 2019, he got married and moved to Cottage Grove with his wife, right? Because it'd be kind of weird if he was still living with his mom.
Yeah, right.
In her basement.
It's
after he got married.
That would be a bad look if you're trying to run for office, I think.
Right.
And so, for reference, Cottage Grove is probably 2 hours or so away from Racine, where he was claiming to be living.
Right. Dane County. So the belly of the beast.
Yeah. The People's Republic.
Right. Um, yeah, so he gets married, moves to Cottage Grove, continues voting by absentee ballot for all of 2019, all of 2020, all of 2021 in
Mm-hmm.
Racine County while living in Cottage Grove. And if we go to Wisconsin State Statute 6.10, Section 2, I mean, it's spelled out pretty clearly that your residence is determined by where your family resides.
Yep.
Or your
Right.
and in Wisconsin that it's a marital state, so that means you live with your wife.
If you're not living
And
separately, then yeah. I mean, they didn't have
right,
two separate addresses. He wasn't living, there's requirements, right? I know there's exceptions for college, folks going to
right.
college, things like that, or long term. I'm sure long term overseas work assignments or deployments in the military. I mean, that's your home
Oh
base.
yeah,
You're obviously living two different places, but your home base is wherever your address was. But this
right.
is different. He was married, moved in with his wife, decided that he still wanted to vote in Racine
He
County.
was attending law school.
Right,
Yep.
right. Which
Attending law
is
school in Madison.
maybe the workaround, but it's at best this is shady. At worst, it's well, we've got
Yeah.
the most secure elections around, right? I mean, that's what we keep being told. But I mean, how can this go on?
That's a good question. We should ask the Speaker of the Assembly.
We should. We should. That'd be a good question for him. I wonder if our state treasurer lived in his district even.
Oh, it's a good question.
We'll have to look that one up later.
Yeah.
It's just been as I've watched things unfold. Now I'm admittedly, like, the last 2 years I've been a member of the Republican Party. I've been pretty much an independent my whole life. I've voted all the spectrums. I make no bones about that. I've mentioned that before. But Trump got me into saying, okay, I need to pick a side. This is getting too serious. I've taken my eye off it way too long. I need to pick a side. So, and obviously I wasn't going with the socialist Democrats. We don't have a viable third party. I mean, we got the libertarians who might be the next closest thing, and they're a distant third. They're not even close.
Yeah.
But so I joined the party. So I'm like a neophyte. Okay. I've been with the party for all of 2 minutes, but in those 2 minutes, I've observed everything that is probably why I didn't join a party to begin with. It's
Exactly.
pissing matches. It's just people that keeping their stranglehold on power. It's the hypocrisy. It's not letting these new ideas come in that are badly needed. They're badly needed.
Yep.
I think the party as a whole, those in it, fine people, met a lot of nice people, but at the end of the day, it's they don't want to change anything, and when things need to change, and I think that's where, like what you've been trying to do within the party, that kind of made our county party chairman, who just usurped it for himself while our real chairman's on a hiatus here because he couldn't take it either. I mean, he's a patriot guy. I think I really like him.
Yeah.
But I think he had to take a break just
Richard.
because all this, just
Yeah.
because all this garbage. So, I mean, so it's honestly, it's got me thinking. I know we've talked about it before. I've talked about it with Aaron. It's really got me thinking. It's like, do I really want to kind of throw money at this again? I mean, I want to make you work for my vote. And I think you get into these parties and they think you automatically got to vote for them.
Right. I mean, that's certainly how it feels. Or they give you a little bit of money for your school board race, and then you're indentured to their wishes,
right?
Or their demands. That's certainly not the way that we raised our children, and I certainly, that's not the way that I want to be treated. So
exactly.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that at all. But I mean, like you were saying, there are some really amazing people who are members of the GOP. The problem really comes in with the board and the executive board. And I don't know if it's a lack of education from the RPW, the Republican Party of Wisconsin, in directing the county parties to how they should be like established and running. But certainly Racine County is a dumpster fire as far as, you know, the Racine County GOP party goes.
All right, so this groupthink, I think, has left the GOP at a crossroads. Or, as I look at it, they're really going down the same path as the Democrats because of it. I mean, the Democrats have sold out to this kind of socialist wing of their party, and really, it's even the sane ones are just kind of go and fall in line with this groupthink, right? And I think
for sure,
if the GOP keeps doing this, it's going to be to their detriment. They need to stand strong on conservative principles when they win in November. And in my mind, it's not a if they win, it's a that they will win, but get out and vote. That's always my message. We can't just rely on that the Democrats have been awful. We still need to get out and vote and still need to change things up. But if they don't stand strong on conservative principles that they espouse, it come November when they win, and more aptly when they're inaugurated in January 2023, they will become irrelevant. That's how it is. People are tired of the party politics. They're tired of the pissing matches between the parties that leave the people forgotten about. Yep. I mean, they're risking a lot by not listening to the people.
Absolutely.
And I think the biggest thing they're risking is the Patriot vote. I mean, we kind of touched on it before. The Republicans, and you've heard it, I've heard it. They have, they think they have the market cornered on the conservative vote. They think they're owed that. I mean, we've sat in, how many meetings, how many kind of conservative meetings where we've listened to Republicans who have done marginally conservative things. I mean, marginally, like just enough to say they can throw around conservative and, I don't know, right, plaster it all over their campaign literature with misleading pictures of Trump on it with themselves. But how many times have we listened to that, to them say in meetings, well, us as conservatives, we have to do this, we have to do that. I think they're really risking, if they don't tighten things up and actually do conservative things, they're risking the Patriot vote. They're risking a true conservative vote. People are tired of it. What do you think?
Well, speaking for myself, I mean, I'm absolutely sick and tired of it. It feels like a complete manipulation. We're going to select the candidates that we want to be, our leaders, and whether it's just, that they're funded by the party, and so that's why they take first place. I don't really understand how it seems to happen every single time, right? That the selected candidates are the ones who become the nominees, but it's at a point where there are a lot of these selected candidates that I'm not really okay voting for. And so where does that leave us patriots, right? I mean, I'm not going to vote Democrat because I feel like they're even further removed from my values than these, selected Republicans. But at the same time, I don't feel like there's a whole lot of difference between the selected Republicans or the establishment Republicans or the Rhino Republicans, whatever you want to call them, and the Democrats. And so
yeah,
I'm really left, feeling betrayed and manipulated by my party.
I would.
My party.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you think about it, right? They're selected's a great word because I think we can go back to our state treasurer primary. I mean, one candidate was all over the state. Both of us, I think, talked to him several times. He was everywhere. The other candidate, the one who votes from wherever he wants and claims to live wherever he wants, I guess, and still gets to vote there. Actually was running for, the one I'm running for treasurer. Somehow didn't do a thing. I didn't see any literature. I didn't see him out anywhere. Somehow doubled up what I would term probably the Patriot candidate, right? I think that people are, and people are tired. we got to quit selecting people, right? I mean, and as voters, it's incumbent upon us to stop falling for these marketing gimmicks of the parties. But I think
Yep.
there's one thing, and I wish I could take credit for this, but I can't. It's a Dan Bongino saying. He says most Republicans are actually Democrats, but no Democrats are actually a Republican. So we have what
I love
ends
it.
up being is we end up with very few true. I mean, I think the ranks are growing, but right now it seems like we still have very few conservative Republicans. We have ones that espouse the values, that sign up for the party platform, then do another thing when push comes to shove.
Yep.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. It leaves my confidence. When I'm looking to now, it's shaking my confidence so much in like, I don't even look at, okay, who's the one that's got the loudest mouth out there, because who's pushing them, because if I see who's pushing or promoting a certain candidate, and I know they're not aligned with the values, the person pushing them, and you've got the one out front just saying the right things, I'm not going to vote for him, period. And I think I think we talked about this too. I think as I looked at our governor race, I mean, there was a candidate that I just wasn't going to vote for anymore, just because that's certain same thing. I mean, you know what? Our legislature's red. I could deal with 4 more years of gridlock in Madison. Does not matter to me. We're not going to be overrun with stupid liberal ideas. We could easily take all the other state offices, because I found, there were probably a number of candidates I could vote for in the key, especially in like the attorney general. That's the only other one that probably really matters the most in our state outside of governor. I mean, lieutenant governor is nice, but what do they do really? State treasurers, whatever. Secretary of State here has no real power, because, the legislature decided it was a better idea to create a corrupt board to oversee our elections, and we all know how that's gone here. I'm like, so I wouldn't have mattered to me if, okay, well, yeah, it would have been nice to have a conservative governor, but well, whatever, you two can keep fighting it out. Not worried about, liberal laws being put in place, because I think outside of a couple areas, this is a very red state. It's just we have 2 major cities that purple it up.
Yep.
So it's like, if you're not going to stand on principle, if you're not going to, and it would have been easy. All you have to do is denounce the person that came out and said it's her time to run. I'm talking about Rebecca Clayfish, for those out there that, and Voss said, nobody else should run. It's going to be Rebecca, or no, is our candidate. Well, no, you don't. You don't select my candidate for me. And now that I know you're behind her, you know what? No. Not after the campaign you ran here to run. No, absolutely not. Couldn't do it.
Oh my gosh. Right. No, absolutely not. And not only that, Robin Voss came in and endorsed her, but also to see, the money that the Walker Clayfish, administration got, where they got in their recall, in their reelection, the money that followed them, the fact that she couldn't campaign on her own. I mean, there were very few times where we didn't see Scott Walker with her campaigning. So
right.
Was she really campaigning on her own platform, or was she campaigning on his coattails? I don't know. That didn't sit well with me. And then one thing that really irritated me about her was that whole line of, I'm a middle-class mom on a budget. Well,
are you?
Guess what? I know what your net worth is. And if we're talking that's middle class on a budget, then I live in a cardboard box and we can't afford anything. I mean, no, you're not middle class.
If you're middle class, and I want to be middle class.
So,
then.
I mean, I think touche, exactly. I think median income is like $64,000.
Yep.
Okay, pretty sure that with a husband who's a lobbyist, that you're not making. Yeah, that's my rant.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not, I'm
no,
not
it's
voting for a
and
middle class mom on a budget who's not really on a budget.
right with you know, where you wonder the van in the ad that she ran saying that. I wonder what junkyard that came out of because there's no way that they'll have a car with 200,000 miles on it or whatever she said. Yeah, but they do
Right.
these things. They say these things that I'm this, I'm that, and then say, oh, by the way, I'm conservative. I say I'm conservative, so that means I'm conservative. So I have a right to the
Mm-hmm.
conservative vote, and that's just not. You know what? I see that it's becoming less and less the case. People are fed up with that. They don't want to be told who to vote for. They don't want their candidates selected. I think money is becoming less and less of an
Right.
object in politics because people are tired of that. And I think, as we head into November, season here, where I'll be out, and I'm sure you will be
Mm,
too, out, kind of listening to the candidates speak. And I feel that we probably
absolutely.
have, for the most part, some good candidate. We have, at least for governor, lieutenant governor candidates I can vote for, attorney general candidate I can vote for. So, hopefully we push it in the right direction here with that. And hopefully I don't hear from them that, the conservative vote, so, along the lines of I deserve the conservative vote, right? Show me what you're going to do. Tell me what you're going to do, and then you better actually do it. Don't just tell me you deserve it because you're, the letter next to your last name on the ballot.
Right. Absolutely. So I'm not committing to, at this point, I'm not committing to any candidates. I certainly would lean towards being able to vote for Michaels for governor, Roth for lieutenant governor, and Tony for attorney general.
Yep.
But I'm going to continue to vet my candidates.
Exactly.
I'm going to continue to ask questions, to listen to what they have to say, hear their responses, see the way that they respond to the people. I think, we have to see that they're, getting out and connecting with constituents and not just, buying the vote through, advertising too. That's a big one for me. But then there are a couple candidates that I don't see myself being able to vote for,
Right.
outside of Robin Boss. I mean, I will not ever vote for that man again. So,
Yeah, that's the
it,
key, right? It's still vet the candidates. I mean, I'm saying I can vote for them.
right.
There's candidates that can,
Yep.
but they've got 3 months to earn that vote. It's not necessarily I'm going to hand it over.
Mm.
Candidates have three
I
months.
think
I'm pretty certain. I think at this point, from what I've seen from Michaels, comfortable there. But there's others. Tony, I've known him, so he's certainly there too. But always vet the candidates, no matter what.
Yep.
Just to make sure, right? Because we still got 3 months. We got just under 3 months to November.
Yep.
Candidates to have 3 months to
I think
continue to prove themselves.
exactly. I think you really nailed it, Ryan, with saying that they need to earn our votes. I feel like what happens is, especially post primary, right? We hear from the party, well, now we all need to unify. We all need to vote in, these Republican candidates. Well, I think I'm kind of over being backed into a corner
Right.
and being told you have to do something. I mean, I'm not really one to do something because I'm told I have to do it anyway. Um, it's just not my
I've
MO.
I've
Um,
noticed that. I've noticed that about you.
my parents would probably say the same thing. she was a pain as a child because she just wouldn't do what we told her to do. Um, if it made sense to me, then then I would go ahead and do it. But I I want to know that, and I'm not talking like me as an individual person, right? Like I don't need to be best friends with Michaels or Roth
Right.
or
Right.
Tony or any of the other candidates, but you need to earn my vote as a constituent of the state of Wisconsin or the 63rd assembly. I need to hear that you're speaking things that resonate with me, with our lifestyle, with our values, I want to hear that, you're proud to be an American,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Like, let's make sure that our country continues to go. I mean, that it goes in the right direction, right? I feel like we're really going in the wrong direction at the moment. So, like, we need to change direction and really focus on our state too.
Yeah, I think the values thing, that's huge, right? Because as we've been talking, right, there's been talking about here, we see it on the campaign trail, right? There's saying we're principled. Here's our principles. We got to stand on principles. Here's our values. It all sounds good. Okay, that lines up, and then they get in office and do something totally different. The important thing too is, I think you touched on it before, Adrian, that you've got to find out who is backing them, right? What corporations are buried deep in the campaign finance reports that nobody looks at, or nobody thinks maybe they don't even know it exists. But I've always said, it's kind of half jokingly, but it's true. I think that politicians their sport coats should look like NASCARs. I want to see who's sponsoring them, because
I actually really love that.
It should be a rule, because that way, just make it easy for us. Okay, well, sorry, Pfizer,
Mm-hmm.
no, not voting for you. You got the Pfizer patch on? No, thank you.
Nope.
I know where that goes. But
and you need two Pfizer patches if you're invested in stocks in Pfizer and if they support you financially, right?
That's right.
Then it's a double no.
and as I say that, I'm sure one of my investments for my retirement funds probably got Pfizer stock in it, but I'm not running for office, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
But yeah,
right.
they think that they're owed. I mean, back up, because we were at the county fair, and I think I stopped in when you guys were working the booth.
Yep.
And I asked you if you heard, because the ad that Voss had put over the loudspeaker at the county fair said that he deserves our vote. No, he doesn't. He needs to earn our vote. I don't care how long any politician's been in. They still need to earn our vote. They still work for us. And if your values don't align, then I'm not going to vote for you. Period.
Exactly. And I think, I think that we can both agree that having children radically changes your life, right? And mostly in really amazing good ways, and you become a less selfish person, and you take into consideration, whether by choice or by force, kind of, right? Like, you have this
sometimes by force, sometimes
and, to raise up. Yeah. But if you don't have children and you've never crossed that bridge, I think it's really hard to be able to represent anyone other than yourself. Yep. And the longer that you're in politics, the more entrenched you become in that, right? Especially if you don't ever have children. And so I think that's part of what we're looking at.
When it shows in the way you govern. I mean, because you're right, children changes your worldview. You're all of a sudden going from thinking, well, I got to do this for me. It's all about me. What do we hear from Voss all the time? We hear so much about what the Democrats are doing and what he wants to prevent them from doing, and not enough about Wisconsinites first, about Assembly District 63 first. It's just the Democrats are doing this and that, and I don't care what the Democrats are doing. I want to know what you're doing to put policy in place that makes our life, district, state, whatever, better. And that makes it so my kids are going to grow up, because this is the kids tie-in here now, that my kids are going to grow up and have a country that is as good or better than what I had. And that's not the case right now.
No.
The principles just go out the window, and it's, because if you don't have kids, you don't have that future thinking mentality. Like the founding fathers looked to the future, and I'm sure most, if not all of them, had kids, right? So that helps. But if you don't have any next generation of your branch of your family, then you're not looking long term.
Right. I mean, you have nothing to plan for in the future.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it's like it's just unbelievable sometimes, and again, it's a two-way street. It's us as voters. We need to be more informed. Period. We're just as culpable here because we're the ones that let them off the hook, let the politicians off the hook, and they say one thing and do another in Madison or DC, or maybe even at your municipal level, and then it comes time to vote again, and they're silver tongued all of a sudden, and we fall for the trap instead of vetting them out and holding them accountable while they're in office. So it's a two-way street. It's partially our problem. And we have to take responsibility of that if we're going to be self-governing people.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a little quick background. My grandpa was a World War II veteran. He was part of the atomic testing in Bikini
Atoll,
Bikini Bay or Bikini Island. I forget what what they call it. But so my family has been fairly patriotic, and so I've always voted. Right, voting has been very important to me. We had kids fairly young, and you kind of get entrenched in raising your kids. And I certainly didn't do my due diligence in vetting candidates. You'd go to the polls and, I heard so-and-so's name, but we're kind of at a precipice, I think, in our state and in our country where we really can't afford to be lazy voters anymore.
Right.
And I'm talking about myself too, because again, like we were saying, there are so many Republicans who, I mean, if you compare them to the Democrats, you really can't tell the difference. Their mannerisms, their opinions. Yeah, and it's really, I mean, I feel it's really unfortunate, but it kind of leaves it back up to us, the people, and we're in a position where, I mean, like we were saying earlier, you have to earn my vote, and I'm not going to be backed into a corner, manipulated into voting for somebody because they are the selected candidate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's and that's a perfect lead into kind of my next topic here. I think is just that. Truthfully, we have a uniparty, right? They're in cahoots. Yeah. They do what they can to make themselves seem different, but at the end of the day, especially at the upper ranks, the commonality is the same. They're both just looking to hold on to their power. They, in front of us, kind of battle and say they're different, but behind the scenes, if you watch, actions speak louder than words. They do different things, and I think, they do, things that are counter to what they told us they were going to do. I think what we've seen is the Republican Party has moved left, and I'd like to see what you think about this statement that I'm going to make here, I guess. But and because of that, I think what you'll see is the modern Democrat Party go away. It's a socialist party at this point. It'll fade into irrelevance. I think Americans do not like socialism. The media and every other outlet, social media, whoever wants us to think that, we're a socialist country now, we want this. We don't. It's not in our DNA as Americans. Groupthink has ruined the Democrat Party. They bought into some Marxist garbage that it just isn't going to fly here. People see it. They've woken up. They're going to rebel against it. But what we've seen is the Democrat Party for years has dragged the Republican Party to the left because they've been spineless. They don't stand on the principles they say they stand on. And so because of that, Republicans have moved to the center or center left on some issues, depending what it is, which I think is leading to the splintering of the party that we've seen. We have a patriot wing now that is, I would say, the truly conservative, right? They're the America First. And that's even, you talk to some Republicans, that's dirty to some Republicans even. Just look how they vote to send all kinds of money to Ukraine, right? Fiscal conservatism, but yeah, let's send 40 billion to Ukraine. Oh, another Ukraine bill. Yeah, I'm going to vote for that. So it's ridiculous to think
Yep.
that they're a conservative party. They're not. They've moved to the center left on some issues, which I think is why you have this loud patriot wing that says it's America first. Why are we not? And it should be. We elect you to look out for us, not
Yeah.
Ukraine, not wherever else you want to send money to launder it back into your own pockets. And I think what we'll see then, because we've
Right.
got the Democrats who they're going to be irrelevant. Let's be honest. As a modern party, they're going to be irrelevant. You're going to see the moderate, the sane ones jump to the Republicans because they've moved to the left. And I think what you'll see, it's not going to be immediate, but you'll have this patriot wing now that says enough of the establishment, and they finally get organized and do their own thing. So interested in what you think about that.
Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, I kind of see that happening currently. I mean, we're at this cross in the road, right, where the Republican Party is really losing their constituent base. You still have the establishment GOP followers. But I think we've seen pretty clearly that, the Patriot wing, like you said, is I would say pretty evenly matched in numbers to the establishment.
Yep.
But you have the elected, selected, and like the GOP party boards, right? Who are that establishment Republicans, where I think that there is, a bigger movement in the people to go to that patriot wing. And I forgot what else you were. What else?
Oh, just that I think what you'll see is the Republican Party basically they'll replace the Democrats as that center left, if you will, party. I mean, it to me, I look at it like you look at what the Republican Party was founded on, conservative principle, kind of fighting against the injustices of the day. And over the years, they've eroded the principle. They've kind of kept moving left, right? And I'm pretty moderate, for the most part, right? I wouldn't say I'm a far righter by any means. What makes sense, let's do things that make sense. And if there's an idea from a sensible absolutely. Democrat on the left that makes sense and is relatively conservative, or it's going to have a broad positive impact, okay, let's do it. Fine. I'm not that way because we all have to live here. We all have to buy into our towns. So it's those ideas that we need from both sides to bring people together. So I'm not far right by any means, but I think what you've seen is Republicans shift left over the years to where it's not even, they don't even stand on the conservative principles, some of them.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that that's spot on. I mean, like we've seen that in our county parties. We've seen that, well, I mean, in Racine County party specifically, because that's the one that, I've actually been involved in. Yep. We've heard some stories from, other county parties across the state, whether they're illegal or, allowed by the Constitution or bylaws of the county parties. We're seeing a lot of things that just kind of feel unethical, right? Like the fact that I believe it's Portage County where Patrick Teston's wife was the county chairwoman, and she was really like manipulating, what kind of campaigning could go on with the county party. We see, in Racine County, Michelle Voss, who is Robin Voss's third wife. Is that really like ethical to have her as the treasurer of the Racine County GOP when he's running for office? And then we see, if somebody wants to come in and run against him, like we had with Adam Steen, right, in America First, candidate. Right. She has complete control of the money that goes in and out of the GOP, despite the fact that, Adam Steen is a GOP member, Racine County GOP member. They can just, completely keep him out of any party support, any party funding, any like, you know, state party funding. I mean, we saw the horrible mailers that went out.
From the state party.
Yeah,
from the state party.
Yes, exactly.
In-kind donations. Yep.
I mean, like, that just absolutely boggled my mind because, you know, at convention, it was, you know, we don't get involved in campaigns before the primaries unless it's an endorsed statewide candidate, which also kind of loops us back to the treasurer's race, where Orlando Owens was the only statewide candidate to be endorsed at convention. I mean, other than Ron Johnson.
Right. And I didn't see any mailers from the state party for Orlando, but I got, I don't know, half a dozen from the state party in-kind donations to Robin Voss's campaign.
Yes.
That's the kind of stuff that makes people look at it and say, why would I even bother? You're not doing what you said you were going to do. This wasn't a statewide race, yet they had inserted themselves with these just lies, outright lies on these mailers about Adam, attacking Adam. And then that's, you know, kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. That's the kind of stuff that makes me lose respect, and you will absolutely lose my vote that way. Forever. Yes. I said forever. Will not vote for anybody associated with Voss that he's pushing or him ever again because of that campaign. Stick to the issues. I might have been able to hold my nose. Now forget it. It sounds like the Democrats might get someone to write in against him. So, you know, we'll see.
Well, I mean, I'll still be writing Adam Steen.
Yeah, me too. 8th. Right. Absolutely.
Regardless. So, I mean, hopefully the people of the 63rd district here can convince him to do an official write-in campaign, which would be really phenomenal.
Oh, well, I'll have to go twist his arm, maybe. I still got his sign up in my yard, so I'm hoping.
We still have his signs up in our yard as well. I mean, if you want to talk, like, let's talk a quality candidate for a minute, and we can talk other quality candidates too. But I mean, Adam Steen is the all-American patriot, family man, God first candidate that everybody should be scrambling to vote for, right?
Right.
And he's talked pretty endlessly about how if we talk about, I think he says if we talk about policy versus politics, then we have so much more common ground. And I love that, because just because we don't see eye to eye with somebody on a topic doesn't mean that we can't discuss policy with them.
Right.
It doesn't have to turn into this big political conversation. But I don't know. I don't know what the spell is that Robin has.
I don't know either. But it was interesting because it was the closest he had ever come to losing a race. And you talk about quality candidates, right? And this, you know, for the listeners out there outside of Wisconsin, I mean, I've had a number of listeners in Wisconsin in chat groups were talking about it, but, you know, outside of Wisconsin here, you know, let's just think about that statement Adrian made for a minute about just quality candidates, right? Who should we be looking for in a candidate? One like Adam Steen, God first. I think it was like God first, family second, and then he was worried about his campaign. And then he's worried about America, right? He had the first two priorities in order, and then, you know, third on the list was the campaign. And he almost came within 260 votes of unseating a almost 20-year incumbent, which I think if we would have went back and looked at our ballots, we would have been maybe better off, because the ballots were really confusing for our primary. They really should add separate ballots. So, yeah, I mean, Adam, we're looking at the results and knowing, because I worked the polls, knowing how many ballots were just not filled out because that race was on the backside. I mean, how many votes did he lose out because people just didn't flip the ballot over? It was a really confusing ballot where we have a primary where you can't cross over. Most states do 2 separate, 3 separate, 4 separate ballots for that sort of thing. Here it's like, well, because the Democrats won the last governor election, they get the first slot. So that means all the Republican races from that aren't statewide basically go to the back of the ballot, where many people didn't flip it over to look.
Yeah, I had a little bit of an issue when I went to vote because my absentee ballot had been requested, but I wasn't voting by absentee ballot, so it took a minute to like get things straightened out. But if it hadn't been for that, and I hadn't been paying attention, like looking around me, they never said anything about the fact, that like there was more on the back that you need to flip over the ballot to finish. I mean, and I knew that I was looking for the Voss Steen race as well. But I think there were, what were there, 2 or 3 races maybe on the back for the Republican ballot. And one of them was for sheriff, and it was an uncontested race. So yeah, I think there's a good deal of people who probably just missed that altogether.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very weird ballot. For all the years that like I've been voting, it seemed unusual for sure. It was also interesting that we had, what was there, 25% reporting, and Adam was up, and then all of a sudden everything froze, and it was about an hour later that everything came back online, or the count came back online, and then Voss was winning by 260 votes, and I think it just stayed there, right?
Yeah, it ended up being 260 votes.
Yeah, so that was really, I mean, I felt like that was really weird too.
Yeah, and we don't have a central count. That's always the excuse they use. It's the central count, still tabulating votes or whatever. It's a district race. We don't have a central count. We're not a big metro area.
Right.
There, generally speaking, there shouldn't be any pauses. You should be getting, results fairly continuously. I know each, I kind of worked the polls for the first time, so kind of saw the inner workings, right? It went fairly smooth from where I was working, but for the most part, we're not talking about thousands of votes in these municipalities are out here. We're pretty much a rural district for the most part.
Yep.
So it shouldn't be that big of a deal where you'd see a pause and then all of a sudden a jump, right? It should be pretty free flowing. It should say, okay, a pretty steady, increase. And then, there's, like you said, there was the stop, right? As I've been reading, that seems to be the big kind of topic of the day here is why was there a pause in the tabulation in the counts. So I'm sure there's the optimist in me says there's got to be some sort of reasonable explanation for that, but questions should be asked still of why, what did that happen? It could be something as simple as, hey, when the municipalities had issue transmitting or calling in or had to rectify counts or whatever, right? Well, make that known. Let's be transparent here, right?
Yep.
Let's not, because that's what gets people asking these questions and wondering, and then you come in and then the politicians come and talk to us and start complaining about how come, we can't move on from it. Well, you never gave us a satisfactory answer.
Right.
Right. I mean, if there's a reasonable answer, fine. But
exactly. I mean, and we could take that all the way back to 2020. I think people are more on edge right now, like regardless, because we haven't seen any good remedies from the 2020 election yet. We just keep being told, we just have to, I mean, in Wisconsin, we're just, being told, we have to elect a conservative governor and a conservative attorney general, right? I think those are the two that they've really been stressing. And but if you look at the way the powers of the legislative body, work, I would argue that, the assembly speaker right now holds as much power as the governor. So why aren't we focusing on that race too? And clearly the speaker of the assembly is not serving his constituents. I mean, he has multiple people that we know blocked entirely,
right?
From his campaign pages and social media. So that's not transparent either.
No, not at all. And I think it's, and that's kind of, I think, leads into our kind of last topic really well here, is we've got getting back on the topic of the Patriot Wing, right? And
yes,
and I think what we saw in our, especially in our district race here, and I think we're seeing it across the nation. I think you look at what happened in Wyoming last night with Liz Cheney just going down in spectacular fashion. That was like the Hindenburg going down there. I mean, she got like doubled up, I think. I mean, it wasn't even close, but the poll said it wasn't going to be close. And kind of sidebar here, and this is how just out of touch and these people are. She thinks she's going to make a president run now. She's going to move to Virginia and thinks she's going to run for president. Well, I'll say this about Vos. At least he knows that he has no chance at winning a statewide race.
Right.
So he's been happy to stay in the assembly and be the longest serving speaker and not do what the people want him to do for 20 years. I'd say like maybe the last 10. I think when he first got in, I think he was fine. I think he's done what every politician does, is they sit in office way too long. They get way too worried about getting reelected instead of putting forth good policy. But yeah, that's a sidebar. But it was spectacular to see that Liz Cheney go down. But kind of gets back to the point of the Patriot movement is going. The America First movement is gaining steam. It's not going to slow down. We've kind of talked about it before. We saw it in our race that the Patriots were neck and neck with the establishment.
Yep.
But what the Patriots need to do is we need to coordinate better. Now, we saw in our state primary here, we had some offices that had multiple candidates with Patriot candidates that had the same basic platform. And all they did was they split the vote. I think our lieutenant governor race comes to mind. We had 8 people running in that thing?
8. Yeah.
For an office that does nothing. And we had several Patriot candidates running, and they split the vote. And when I go back and look at the vote, if we got the Patriots together, we pick the best candidate, who's got the best chance to win, put all of our muscle behind them, they would have won. The votes were there between the 3 or 4 Patriot candidates that ran in the lieutenant governor race here, that if we would have picked one, got behind them, they would have been the nominee on the Republican side. No, not Roger Roth. I think he'll be fine. I know when I was at and Aaron mentioned it too. When we were at the GOP dinner, he mentioned what a big pain in Voss's ass he was. So that was good. I like that. I mean, I like that. So I said I could vote for him. Now he's going to have to go out and earn that, right? But he's at least someone I could vote for. I can see myself voting for. But what the Patriots need to do now is we need that coordination. It's okay. Who really has the best chance to win? Who are we going to get behind? Let's go ahead and get them elected, right? And start changing, some more things out here and start changing over this establishment and start putting new ideas in our government.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I feel like is one of the biggest stumbling blocks to Patriots too is the campaign finance.
Yes.
So you have races. Goodness, I mean, what are we looking at? Michaels has spent around $9 million. I think
12. 12.
Oh my
goodness. That's what I read.
And I think Rebecca has spent like 7 million maybe on her race. I think that's
Yep.
what I had heard. And then
Yep.
you have Timothy Rampton, who rock solid candidate, right? I mean, he
Yep.
has put in the blood, sweat, and tears over the last 20 months to just, pursue election integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking $175,000, I think. And I think that he ran an incredible campaign on that. But how can you compete? How
Right.
can you compete with that? The other thing is when you have candidates who have 2/3 of their funding that are coming from special interests and
Yep.
committee donations, how do we, the people, compete with that? They're definitely not going to be concerned about our interests or representing us when the majority of their funding is coming from special interests. Like, something has to be done about that, right?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's not just
No,
me.
no, it absolutely does. I think I've said on the show before here. I think I talked about it with Aaron. What need, and every time I've brought this up to Voss a couple times, and he's quickly changed the subject on me and gave me some line of political BS as to why, well, we need this, the money, blah, blah, blah. Money for whatever office you're running for should come from that jurisdiction. So in the case of the 63rd district, all donations should come from people in the 63rd district, not special interests from outside the district, the state, wherever.
Yep.
If you're running for statewide office, you can take from the state, but we've got to get the PACs out.
Yes.
No PAC money.
Yep.
We need to limit, the parties. Fine, but I think we should limit, because companies and PACs donate heavily to the parties,
right?
And put them on the hook, the parties on the hook for whatever interest, whoever John Donor was that gave them a ton of money.
Right.
You need to get the money out of it. Put everybody on equal footing. Now, exactly. If someone can self-fund like Michael's, fine. You're never going to compete with a self-funder. But if they want to blow $12 million plus on their own campaign, that's their prerogative. Fine. I mean, we had Alex Lasry, who spent $14 million of his trust fund and then just dropped out of the Democrat Senate race. So, I mean,
whoa! I did not realize that. Wow.
Yeah, he
Thanks
spent
for
a ton of money.
That tidbit with me. Wow.
Yeah, no. I mean, so if you want to spend your own money, fine, do it. But the donations that come into the campaigns need to come from the jurisdiction in which you're running for, period.
Yeah. I think that's very reasonable. And being able to make the connection with the people in your district, right? Like, you and Aaron were just incredible. I mean, like, both of you absolutely floored me. Same with Adam Steen, out knocking doors virtually every single day, for whatever period of time. I mean, the fact is that you were doing it every day, doing it repetitively. You and Aaron were doing it in the nasty, horrible cold weather. Adam's doing it in the, like the middle of the summer heat. I mean, we saw in feedback, from people who were like, oh my gosh, I've never even had a school board member, or, somebody who's running for school board knock on my door.
Right.
Well, if you're looking to represent the people of that district or that, that school district, shouldn't that be your first priority? And if you don't have all that special interest money, then you might be a little more motivated to get out and, knock the doors and make the connections with the people.
Right. You'd be more apt to listen to them for sure, whether you're knocking doors or not. I mean, you're not beholden then to whatever corporate PAC donated the max amount to your campaign allowable. And then it opens up. You start doing that, it opens up more opportunity for those Patriot candidates. There's more equal footing. Truthfully, it might open up to somebody who sees the campaign funding as a stumbling block and just won't run, and they'd be a fantastic candidate.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's an excellent point. I mean, it was a discussion that, we had in our house when Aaron was, considering running for school board. It's just an unfortunate state of affairs right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing at a time. I mean, I think if we can start you're getting these Patriots, these America First candidates out front, and you start getting the high profile, like Adam got endorsed by Trump. Unfortunately, it was like a week before the primary that he received that endorsement, but he still received that endorsement, right? So I think if you start getting that, and I'm not big on I don't care who endorses who outside of now. I just look at it to see, okay, who don't I want to vote for based on that endorsement? Because that tells me all I need to know about the mindset of that person being endorsed.
You and me both. Yep.
I think if you got someone like Trump, who's carries a lot of political weight, people see that endorsement. I think that's a huge thing. And I think it can help bridge the gap right now in terms of Patriot candidates or good people who want to stand up and do something, and see money as a barrier to if they can maybe work towards that kind of, not everybody's going to get the Trump endorsement, right? But kind of get some sort of well-known endorsement or exposure that can help bring some of the money in. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like I said kind of earlier, the money is not the end all be all this time. I think in our current times, our current political climate, because people are just so fed up with the politics as usual. But you do probably need more than what would you say? Rampton got 175,000. I think you probably need a little bit more than that when you're going up against $1 million machines. Well, Michael's self-funded, but Clayfish had the PAC money coming in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and for a statewide race, I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to meet everybody face to face, right?
Yep.
Like in a district, you might be able to like really apply yourself and hit most of the doors. I don't even know. Maybe that's unreasonable because 59, 60,000 people in a district. Yep. But definitely statewide, you need to get your face in front of people, whether it's through mailers or a commercial. But I don't know, lots of things to consider and to be looking at. Adam didn't get the Trump endorsement because he had oodles and noodles of money coming in. He got the Trump endorsement because he worked his butt off, and he deserved that for working so hard, right? Not that he like deserves any special treatment, but and I completely agree with you that endorsements really don't mean anything to me other than to point out who not to vote for.
Right.
And, that's part of it. And I do think the one thing that a Trump endorsement does is it helps to point out the candidate that might lean more patriot, right?
Yep.
I don't think that's just a blanket, he's got all of the perfectly right candidates. We again still need to be vetting them for ourselves.
Right.
Bottom line.
Yep.
But maybe you'll, maybe in general, you look a little bit closer at a candidate, either because of an endorsement or, like we have said multiple times now, you go, oh, well, this person just endorsed them and I really don't like what this person has done or, what I've seen them say or do. So why did they endorse that candidate? And should I be concerned about this candidate that I was leaning towards?
Right. Yeah. And I think in that respect, if you, as a candidate, know that, I think behind the scenes, you've got to say, hey, look, don't endorse me, right? Because
Right.
there are going to be people that look at that. And I might agree, with a good portion of that person's platform. But at the same time, it's like, well, I see the ties, and I know if you're getting that endorsement, that's going to mean you owe favors. There's some people that give their endorsement freely, right? And that's fine. But there's a lot of others that give an endorsement and are going to expect obedience and favors in return. And you'll start to know who those people are, those politicians are, and you start to shy away from those people they endorse, which might be a bad thing in the end because they might be a decent candidate. But at the same time, it's like, I know you're going to end up owing a favor or two.
Right. Exactly. Or are you going to be beholden to the person that's endorsing you and, to their ideological whims, right?
Right. Yep.
As an example, Walker and Clayfish both signed on to the Coke pledge. It was some kind of a climate change tax pledge where basically they both had to pledge that they would not sign any new tax laws or tax bills into law unless I got that wrong. They would not sign any like climate change bills, like anything that would affect, climate change and might affect the tax levels, tax brackets for businesses, unless it also came with like tax benefits for those companies.
Right.
It's kind of like bizarre, but anyway, and I probably didn't explain it very well either, so I apologize for that. But that's one of those things where like alarm bells should go off for everybody. Like,
right.
Wait, I have to sign a pledge with you in order for you to back me? I don't think so. Like that doesn't go over well with me.
It's major alarms. I mean,
yes.
why is private enterprise going to politicians and saying, sign this pledge and we'll back you. We'll put our PAC funding behind you. We'll donate directly to your campaign up to the maximum amount, whatever the case may be.
Or
we, the people, should be asking what's going on. And it just shows the need to say, get all the corporate money and the private money out of our system, out of our political campaigns, and fund it by have the people are the ones that fund it within whatever jurisdiction.
Absolutely. Yep. I fully agree with that.
Yeah, well, I'd like to thank you, Adrienne, for joining me today. It's been a great conversation. I think we've run the gamut here of the Republican Party and what they need to do, what they should do, and I think for the listeners out there, what to look for, right? I think how do we get more informed, I think was not something I was intending to come out of our conversation today, but I think it did because it just naturally led there, and it's important.
Yeah.
We have to vet these candidates. So thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And
thank you so much.
We'll have you back on again, I think.
That would be fantastic. Thank you for having me. And if anybody, if any of your listeners don't know how to vet candidates well, I know that you are a wealth of information for, all things campaign related, especially after having run your own campaign. So definitely reach out to Ryan and ask, any questions if you're looking for pointers on how to vet candidates.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Right. Thanks for having me.
Before I close today's show, I have a couple of small asks. We've been growing because the Living with Liberty Army has been sharing the show with family, friends on their social media accounts, wherever you see an opportunity to spread the truth. I do truly appreciate that. Word of mouth is the best way for independent creators like myself to get the word out. Please continue sharing the show with anyone you know who is looking for outside the mainstream content and perspectives, or just needs to hear the message of liberty, or just needs to hear a reassurance that they are not alone in their thinking. Also, if you are listening to the audio-only show and your platform allows for reviews, please give us a 5-star rating. It helps others find the show. And if you are viewing on Rumble or YouTube, hit the Rumble or thumbs up button. This amounts to a 5-star rating on these platforms and helps us get into the recommendations. No matter the platform, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It alerts you to when new shows are posted and is another mechanism to help us get into the recommendations and to help spread the truth. Friends, that's my show for today. Thank you for tuning in, and special thanks to Adrienne for joining today's show. Please check out my website, livingwithlibertypodcast.com. There you'll find links to my past shows, my original articles, as well as other resources to help arm you with knowledge in fighting off the prevailing narratives of the day. While on my website, shop my store, Living with Liberty Outfitters. Lastly, I'd be so grateful if you shared, subscribed, and left a positive review of the show, should your listening platform allow. Subscribing helps us move up the charts and helps more people find the truth.